Hi everyone, my name is Antoine. I am a Palantir AIP engineer and a partner at 10x Partners. What I'm going to be doing for you today is a bit of a role play. Let's say that I'm an analyst in a private equity fund. I want to present to you this tool that 10x Partners built for us. It's called AI Market Watch. Very impactful. Let's deep dive. I'm an analyst. There's a lot of things happening. We're at the end of July 2025. I have plenty of entities of interest because of my portfolio companies, because of my investment thesis. I want this kind of market watch. What's been happening lately? What are the news talking about? What are the headlines? And I want it to be digestible because there is just so much noise. What I want is the golden insight, what really matters to me. Part of my investment thesis, we can say, is Japan, for instance. And so here already, I can see on the screen a lot of value and a lot of color. Let's deep dive. First thing first, I can see that here, everything related to Japan, Japanese stocks, has been combined inside of this view. Some clustering is in place already. That's great. Entity recognition, amazing. But what do I see exactly? I see some colors. And obviously, these colors are related to how well Japan is perceived in each of the news that you can see on screen here. And overall, it looks quite green. Apparently, based on the sources that I've added and that are automatically being ingested every almost minutes here, I can see that currently Japan is quite well perceived on the market. However, on some news that are related to, Japan, here in that case related to Tokyo and to Japan, I can see that there's another entity, here in that case, Donald Trump, that apparently is quite poorly perceived. If I access the selected news, I can actually understand what's happening. I can get all of the context. And indeed, here from this article in CNBC, I see already from the key points and from the first paragraphs that, Japan is positively perceived, Donald Trump probably a bit less because of the tariffs in that case. I would assume as well that as an analyst, would be great for me to have a bit of a digest of everything that's been happening. For instance, I go to sleep like a normal human being, and because the news are not stopping while I'm asleep, I would like to have a bit of a digest when I wake up. What's been happening overnight? Also because Japan is a bit of a different time zone than mine. What I can do is click the button, Generate AI Digest. And that's exactly what's going to be happening. Let me select all of the news that are related to, the night. In that case here from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. and click the button Run LLM. And what's happening is that similarly to if I had an army of interns working for me specialized in a specific topic, here I'm having a quick overview, kind of executive summary view of everything related to Japan over this specific period. That could be here the recent news highlights. It could be the context and analysis around the events and the outlook and key drivers. Super impactful for me. Again, this kind of news aggregator with entity resolution, with embedded sentiment analysis and polarity, with this kind of bird eye view and AI digest are extremely impactful to me as an analyst because also I can modularize this application as I want. That's the power of it. I can add entities of interest, I can add sources of interest, and I could even configure, the refresh rate and everything. I have the control over my tool and it's custom made for me. Great. Removing my hat of the analyst, putting back my hat of the 10x Partners engineer on. And I want to tell you that this whole application has been built in a single day. And that's not only because, Palantir AIP is an amazing platform, very powerful, but it's also because here at 10x Partners, we have the in-house expertise. We're a team of senior-only engineers. And so this kind of, product that we're co-building with a lot of private equity funds who are asking for that is extremely impactful to them. And we can deploy it super fast and in a very, custom fashion. Let me actually give you a bit of a deep dive in the technology. What do you think? Let's dive into it. So what I want to show you is what's happening behind the scenes. If I get to my root folder here, which is use case number 9, because we do have a lot of demos and a lot of projects like this we're doing internally at 10x Partners, I want to have a look a bit at the pipeline, everything that's happening here. What you're seeing on screen is the file system of Palantir Foundry. It's not extremely relevant. What I want to show you right now is actually the LLM extractions for the news. I think that's one of the most amazing parts from this whole pipeline. What you're seeing here on screen is very simple. It's a few blocks of codes, right? You've got a block where apparently there is an LLM being used, which is basically extracting information from news. You can inject the different variable that you want from the data set that you're refining. Here in that case, I pass the news to my LLM, which is Gemini 2.0 Flash. I could have any public commercial model I want. Most of them are supported by Palantir AIP out of the box. And I'm asking it to output an array of structure which contains the entity of the company or the company ticker and the polarity on the news between 1 and 10. All of this is run incrementally because I don't want to reprocess the news that I've already been processing before, and I've been fed to a dataset that is then synced into the ontology. That's amazing. But now, how do we do the entity resolution, right? How do we know that the US is actually the United States? Or how do we know that, as we were saying before, the Nikkei 225 is actually Japanese stocks? How do you do this kind of entity resolution? This we're doing in a different platform application, which allows us for a bit more versatility, which is code repository. And here I don't want to dive too much into the details, right? But basically what's happening is clustering, normal clustering based on the embeddings of the entity name. So we take the entity name, we get the embeddings from it using Ada2, and then we do some form of clustering using the embeddings, right? You can think of it as the k nearest neighbors. That's great. So that's the two main parts. There is a final one missing, which is, okay, I have all of my news. I've extracted entities from it. I've run, entity resolution. But actually, where do the news come from? And so the news, they come from an RSS feed. In our case here, we have a bunch of different RSS feeds configured through data connection. We have Google News, we have The Economist, we have Bloomberg. Remember that all of this could be customized. Like typically us at 10x Partners, when we onboard a customer, some of them, they ask, hey, I have a specific news source, which is, like a research newsletter, right? Or an analyst newsletter, or I have a specific website about my portfolio company that I want to keep on watch. And so we could add all of these sources here as well. In that case, it's the generic ones because none of what you saw was faked. All of this was real. We added a few data points that we consider to be the most generic and appreciated ones, which are the ones from Bloomberg, The Economist, and similar sources, and Google News as an aggregator. And we ran all of our pipeline that I've demoed to you using them. Amazing. Final thing that I want to show you is the ontology, right? The ontology is quite simple. In our case, it contains 4 different objects. The cluster, which is typically in our case here, an entity of interest, as you could see in the application. It can be the S&P 500, it can be the Nasdaq, it can be Google, it can be the World Bank, the US, etc., etc. We have our cluster, we have our news, which are stored as well, directly pulled from this RSS feed and cleaned a bit. We've got our news entities, which is the link between the two, or rather the extractions of the entities from the news. And then we've got the one that is linking the entity extracted from the news to its relevant cluster. We could picture it directly inside of the ontology, major application. And so for that, I'm going to be opening it right here. And you can see that we've got all of our relevant links configured. It's a simple yet powerful ontology. The key here when it comes to news extraction is to be really careful about the costs, right? Not the cost necessarily for storing all of these news and entities extracted to the ontology, although because this use case is incremental and we want to keep some form of history, it can pile up quite fast if you're indexing every properties in memory. What's important, or at least to my eyes, is that the pipeline runs incrementally, not only for data processing reasons, but most importantly for the GenAI fees reason. You don't want to run GenAI on the news that you've already extracted entities from. Great. I think we've seen everything. Thank you for your attention. I think this app is extremely valuable to most of our clients and some of our leads. If you're interested in seeing it in action for you specifically, do reach out to us. We're always happy to demonstrate how we can push the boundaries of this app to your specific investment thesis. We're also happy to organize introductions to Palantir directly. So do reach out to us for that as well. And I'll see you very, very soon. Cheers.